In this video, I'm going to show you how to make general edits to your entire photo in Lightroom. So all you need to do is choose a photo, and you can go to the single view mode in the bottom left corner, or you can double click on the picture and it'll open up in a larger view. When we want to edit things, you're going to go over to the right-hand tool side, and the first tool that we're going to be working with is the general edits, which is quick keyed to E. So when we click on that, that'll give us all these different things. We can work from presets, we can change it to black and white, and we can also come through and adjust the individual values. So we can change things that deal with light by changing these values. And we can see as I raise the exposure, it gets lighter, or if I drop it down, it gets lower. You don't usually want to go too far with your edits. It's probably better to just take another picture, but depending on the effect that you want, you can play around with these. You can always reset the values by double-clicking the image, or if we kind of come over here to this little ... ellipses, we can see that there's our kind of quick keys here, and we can show the original by pressing \. We can also reset our edits with Shift R. So I'm going to zoom back out again, make just a couple of edits to the entire scene. One thing that I kind of like, generally like doing, is I always like to bump up the contrast a little bit to give a little bit more heaviness to the shadows. I drop the shadows to make it feel a little bit moody. And I'll often come and play with the curves. Curves edit the entire scene as a whole, depending on how you move this around, and you can add in a couple of different things. And it gets kind of dramatic. So if you click on one and double click it, it'll go back to normal. And if I double click on this original one, it goes back to normal. I think I want to play with this to make it a little bit more dramatic. So I think I'm going to play with the cyans a little bit. I'm going to come over here and give it a little bit more violet to give it some moodiness in its shadows. And I think that's pretty interesting, although things started to get a lot darker. So I might have to come back here and play around with the exposure just a little bit to get a little bit more light in it. Again, you want subtlety in your designs more often, unless you're going for a really big creative design. And then if I always want to double check because I'm working very subtle, again, I can press the \ key, and it'll put it back to the normal so we can see what kind of edits we have made. The lovely thing about Lightroom is that if we go and start, making adjustments on another design, so I'm going to come to this one, and I'll make some adjustments to this to kind of bump up those. I think I want to bump up the greens just a little bit more, and I don't want it that hard, so maybe I need to come to the color specifically, and I'll change the vibrance to give it a little bit more color, just a bit more saturation. And I can even play with the color mixer and adjust specific colors. So maybe I want to adjust only the greens to give it a little bit more color and saturation, but I don't want so much of the oranges to be so crazy. I kind of like a little bit of the pink hue in it. But what Lightroom does is it remembers the edits that have happened here. So as I jump back and forth, we can see here's that other image that I was working on. And if I use that \ key, you can see we can always remember that. And as I jump back to a different image, here's this image, and here's the edits that I have made in that design. I think it's starting to pixelate the background, but you get the general idea. Something else that is helpful is if you press Z, we can zoom in a little bit and move this about. And then using Z again, we can zoom back out if we click again. And so we can kind of do a little bit of spot checking, but sometimes it's best to export the image. But we'll deal with exporting the images and making them finalized in another video.